Good morning. I'm glad to see you. So I'm not sure why some of you are here, but most of us are here to talk about the use of the private banking model in your businesses and learning to take over the banking function in your life, in your family's life, in the life of your posterity, in the life of your future and your legacy. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for our colleagues and associates, the 5 families from the 5 cities, from Southern California, from Seattle, from Denver, from, where am I missing? South Dakota, and Lincoln, Nebraska. So you're going to hear from several speakers this morning. First of all, myself, and you're going to hear different perspectives on banking, on investments, on finance, on economics, and everybody has a different take on the idea of wealth. And what I usually like to open up our classrooms with is a question where I ask, what keeps you up at night? From a financial perspective. I don't want to hear about your medical problems. I don't want to hear about your kids running into the bedroom with their nightmares. From a financial perspective, what keeps you up at night? And I took the liberty of putting a few things that I think most people would agree on. So if you're a business owner, which most people in here are, profits, revenue, growth, the economy, taxes, marketing, yeah, your kids have to slip in there somehow. Retirement, investments, college, inflation, debt, and healthcare. Does that pretty much cover it? Is this what we worry about? So we've run dozens and dozens of classes, and 99% of people give us these answers. What's the solution? What's the number one solution that you would think of? So I think of better advisor, because growing up with the guilt complex, it's always my fault. People need a better advisor. Well, that's why you're here. You either have a better advisor who's in this room, or you're going to. A better plan, that's what we're going to talk about today, and more money. So I was thinking about the folks that are in this room, and we're short of 50 people, but let's say that there are 50 of us in this room. And let's just assume that the 50 of us over the past 20 years have earned $50,000 a year. Some of you have earned less, some of you have earned more. Can we assume that 50 of us have earned $50,000 a year for the past 20 years? So that defeats the question, more money. Is more money the answer? More money can't be the answer, because in this room we have allowed $50 million to slip through our fingers. $50 million. It kind of reminds me of my dad when I was a kid growing up, and I would ask him for money. Then I would go and blow it on I don't know what, and I would go back to him and ask him for more money. And he'd say, what did you do with the last $20 I gave you? Well, class, what did you do with the last $50 million you got? And what makes you think that you'll do any better with the next $50 million? It seems to me like we need to think about our approach to money and wealth, because we need to learn that they're not the same thing. Many people think they are, and I think that's one of the main problems, is people don't understand the place of money in their wealth plan. We determine our strategy towards money. Why isn't everyone rich? Everyone isn't rich because we don't know what rich is. We don't know what it means to us. We don't know why we want to become rich. We don't have a really strong idea. We don't have really strong details on what we would do with the rich. And our attitude is based on our decisions, our approach to wealth, our attitudes, our beliefs are going to guide how we approach wealth. I know that as a boomer, I've talked to a lot of other boomers, and it seems like the boomers have taken a lot of time to get rich and to make a lot of money. Good morning. To make a lot of money during their lifetime, and we kind of forgot to bring our kids along the way. We kind of forgot to transfer the wisdom to our kids. And our kids are left behind because they see us making a lot of money, but they don't understand what comes behind it, what goes into the idea of building wealth over a lifetime. So first of all, we have a problem with our thinking. We have a problem with our attitudes and our beliefs. And then secondly, we have external forces affecting our ability to get wealth, things that are working against us. And I call one of those forces the money grab. So banks, Wall Street, and governments have a very efficient and effective way of getting into our pockets. Would you agree to that? And they found ways to get into our pockets automatically. So here are a couple of the ways that they get into our pockets automatically. 1913, the income tax is created. And of course, we as good citizens were on our honor to make sure that we paid our taxes in full and on time. Social Security, we'll talk about that a little bit. And Social Security may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing, it may be a negative thing, it may be a bankrupt thing, but it's going to continue on for a while. In 1943, the government decided that they didn't want to trust us to send our taxes in. So the government passed a law that required employers to take the taxes out of our paychecks so that we wouldn't have to be burdened with a responsibility. Isn't it great how the government makes it easier and easier for us to give them our money? In 1974, they made it easier for us to give Wall Street our money. Now, I'm a registered investment advisor and a money manager for some clients, but I spend 90% of my time talking people out of the market if they're not comfortable enough to understand it, and if they don't understand it, they really shouldn't be going into it. You know, Warren Buffett says that diversification is for people that don't know what they're doing. Kind of surprising. 2006, President Bush signed the Pension Protection Act. So here's another automatic piece that allows employers to enroll employees in 401k plans and start deducting money from their paychecks without the employee's knowledge or permission. Once the employer signs you up, you can opt out. But what are most people going to do? They're going to say, well, I guess it's a good thing. I don't really understand investments. I guess I'll just invest in what my neighbor is going to invest in. And I'll just let it ride because I'm not that old. I'm not near retirement. And I'll just let the money flow out of my paycheck. So we had some automatic tools and vehicles that governments and Wall Street are using and banks are using. And here's another tool, mortgage interest. And most of you know that as good Americans, we don't stay in our houses very long. But we insist on taking 30-year mortgages. Now, I'm not saying 30 years is the best. I'm not saying it's the worst. But think about the 30-year mortgage. How long do most Americans stay in their home? 7 years. And during the first 7 years, 85% of our payment goes to interest, right? And what happens after 7 years? We buy a new home. And we start the process over again. And hopefully it's a bigger home with a bigger mortgage, with another 30-year mortgage. So we have money coming out. Now, does anybody know what the average credit card balance is that people carry in the US? That's pretty close. $15,000 at 15% plus. And how long do we carry it? Forever. Excellent. So in order to have a calculator work, we're guessing 30 to 40 years to pay off a credit card. 30 to 40 years. We're taking 30 to 40 years to pay off $15,000. We wind up paying $70,000. So that shirt that you got on sale for $15, you wound up paying $70 for it. Most people here understand lost opportunity cost, the lost earnings of your money over time. That $70,000 could have put $250,000 into our retirement plans. Now, if that's not enough for you to go home and convince your friends, your family, your neighbors to cut up their credit cards and maybe just use American Express, I don't know what is, because most Americans don't have half that in total assets when they get to age 60. So just to put things in perspective, we're taking 30 to 40 years to pay off $70,000. $70,000 is just a tad over what every single person in this room and all your kids owe on the national debt. Just putting things in perspective. But we're using those credit cards because they were automatic vehicles that someone sold to us in order to get us to give them our money. Auto interest. So we're buying cars, we're leasing cars, we're paying cash for cars. The money is going out over a period of time. We have automatic actions that are being taken. So we come to the conclusion that taxes must go up. I don't know if, David Walker was the Comptroller General for the United States. He was the Comptroller General for 11 years. And he said that taxes are going to have to double or our country is going to go bankrupt. Now, this won't be the first time that taxes will have doubled what the present rate was. Because from about 1930 to about 1980, the taxes were never below 50%. So when folks come to me and say, well, I want something where I can write off my taxes. I want something I can get a tax deduction. I have to lower my taxes. But we're in an artificially low tax environment today. So if you understand that taxes must go up in the future, then maybe paying some tax today to put our money into some other vehicles and some other instruments and strategies that'll help us become tax-free might be a good strategy. That's just a little reminder. If you go on the US debt clock, you'll see that rolling live as you're watching. So back to Social Security for just a minute. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you need to know about this and understand why taxes have to go up. In 1935, when Social Security was instituted, there were 42 workers for every retiree. And most retirees didn't get to collect Social Security because they died before they started to collect, because collection age was 65 and their life expectancy was 62. In 2017, there were I dropped the dot and the 3.1 workers for every retiree. 3.1. And our life expectancy, if you hit 65, our life expectancy is 85. So with just knowing this, is there anybody here, I really shouldn't ask this question because I might get an answer. Is there anybody here who thinks that taxes can possibly go down? So if that's the case, maybe we should be thinking about strategies. Tax treatment of various assets. Just a couple of categories. You can only be in 3 categories as far as taxes are concerned. You can have your money taxed now. Here are some items that are taxed today. Your cash, your paycheck, ordinary gains that you receive today, those are taxed now. Taxed later, business capital gains, appreciating property, retirement plan income. And these lists are not exhaustive, but it gives you an idea of the difference between being taxed today and taxed tomorrow. And then the bucket that we try to encourage our clients to think about, the tax-free bucket, first of all, Roth IRA. You have to be making a certain amount of money before you're eligible, or up until you're eligible to have a Roth IRA. Above that limit, you can't have one. So it's a very limited account, and it still has some restrictions before age 60. And then there's life insurance. which is an unlimited bucket. So we have 3 buckets. And what I try to do is make our conversations as simple as possible. You don't have a lot of places to put your money. Where is it going? I don't want to think about the 15,000 possible stocks, bonds, mutual funds, mixes of investments. Those are one bucket. It's a market account. So where do you store your cash? Some people store it behind a brick wall. You can keep your money in your business, which is essential for your business to grow. You can keep it in cash. You can put it in the market. You can put it in real estate, or you can buy life insurance. No, none of these categories are exclusive of each other. Many people think it's a good idea to fill up all the buckets. And you know that there are pros and cons to each strategy. Some people have come to me and said, I will never put another dollar in the stock market again. And some people say, I've made 8, 9, 10% for the past 10 years. I love the stock market. Everybody's different. So we're not here to say you should put money in one place or another. We're here to say there's a banking function involved in every single strategy and every single business opportunity that you will be involved in, whether it's investing in your business or buying real estate or putting money in the stock market. There is a banking function attached. And that's what Jim Oliver and Andrew Rinn and Stan Bullis are going to be talking about today. So anybody here besides advisors ever hear of the Bauer report, Bauer Financial? So you can see here, it says, we analyze banks and credit unions very carefully. So you could go to BauerFinancial.com and you could look up your bank or any bank that you're interested in. The report's about $50. And we kind of spot check a few different banks across the country every 6 months to see if the numbers are still pretty consistent with what we believe. So Bauer Financial runs reports and does analysis on most of the banks in the US. So we're going to talk a little bit about how your money works, because since we've been having this conversation about 16, 17 years, we find that most people are misinformed, they're unsure, they're confused, and most of the time they're surprised when they find out how money really works. So we put our money in banks. Did I lose you, anybody yet? Thank you. And the banks then take our money and lend it to borrowers. Who are the borrowers? We are, right? The same people that went and made the deposit on Monday are going back to the bank on Tuesday and filling out a credit report and borrowing money. Now, what we need to understand is this is just one bank as an example. So we lent Bank of America $860 billion last year. I want you to be clear on the parties and the players. So Bank of America was the borrower. They're in business to make a profit. They need capital to work with, and they borrowed money from us. You okay with that? So when we made our deposit into Bank of America, we expected to receive an interest rate. And that's why Bank of America is obligated to pay us interest, because we are the lender and Bank of America is the borrower. Now, Bank of America then takes the money and they lend it to others. So they put the money in motion. But last year, for our $860 billion, they paid us $1.9 billion. That's a lot of money if it's one account, but sadly, it's not in one account. It's in a bunch of different accounts, probably millions of accounts, which equates to, we'll get to that in a second, about 0.2%. Now, in order to get our money out of the bank, you notice they didn't ask a lot of filtering questions to take our money in. But to lend the money back to us, we had to fill out an application, have a decent FICO score, pay some fees, and we had to be working. We didn't have to be working to put the money in. And now for the privilege of allowing us to keep our money on deposit with Bank of America, we paid them $44.8 billion. Is anybody here surprised at that? Or have you all heard this story before? If anybody wants a copy of the Bauer report, we're happy to send it to you. So that $1.9 billion equates to 0.2%. So we made 0.2% on our money. We didn't get zero interest rate. We got something for Bank of America holding the money. And they made 5.2%. So you could say, well, they made 5% more than we did. But when you think about it, there's a multiple. And that multiple is 26 to 1. So if you're working with a financial partner, and every time you make $1, your financial partner makes $26, what's your initial reaction to that? It's okay. You can scream, throw donuts at me, whatever you like. Some people say that's not fair. And some people say we should shut the banks down. And some people say they're a bunch of crooks. And I say they're doing what's legal, right? They take our money, they mark it up, and they lend it back to us. They're doing something that's legal. What I say is we need to learn what the banks are doing. If you want to spend the next 30 years arguing and legislating and voting and carrying protest signs against Bank of America, you can do that. Or you could learn what they do, because the people who have the money, the rich people, so to speak, the banks, the Fortune 500 companies, the wealthiest individuals in our country, understand that money has to move in order to be profitable. What we're doing as consumers, and I'm not pointing out anybody in this room, but we generally as consumers are letting our money sit with banks, with Wall Street, with various accounts, and we're hoping to make a profit. The people who are making the real money, the real revenue, are people who are creating velocity. I don't know if we have copies of the Bauer report, do we? So if anybody wants a copy of the Bauer report, we have it here. I know you can't see that necessarily. The top line that's highlighted in yellow is the $860 billion. This is from Bauer report on Bank of America for 12/31/16. And the two lines in yellow on the bottom are simply the interest income, which Bank of America made, $44 billion, and the interest expense, the $1.9 billion that they paid us in interest earnings. Now, the reason why we give the reports and the reason why we make them available and tell you where to go for the information is that nothing that we say from the podium, from the classroom, across the table with our clients, nothing that we say is speculation or opinion. We're just dealing with what is. So what we find is that when you have a bank in the middle of your financial model, what's going to happen is you're going to have cash flowing to whoever is in the middle position. And chaos is going to result when you have interest going out, interest expense for cars, houses, credit cards, and when you have automatic payments going out, 401ks, IRAs, retirement plans, taking money out of your paycheck, Social Security that you may or may not receive anything on. So what we're interested in doing is creating a scenario where our clients have control of their money, where we create certainty. Now, I understand the stock market can return a decent rate of return on paper, and the problem is we're not going to retire on paper. We're going to have control of an account where we can have good returns, where we can have increasing revenue, where we can have guarantees over a long period of time. So we're focused on certainty as opposed to chaos. Certainty as opposed to uncertainty. We feel like having the family in the middle of your wealth plan is more important than having a stranger in the middle of your wealth plan. It's more important than having a bank or Wall Street or governments. We understand that velocity is important, and there is going to be a conversation behind every single point that we bring up today. So with your family in the middle of your wealth plan, these are some of the things that we're striving to achieve. We want to achieve control for you. We want to achieve certainty for you. We want to achieve increasing revenue, guarantees, more protection, more ability. We want to encourage people to dream about the things that they would provide to their posterity, their future, their legacy, inheritances, more than money. So if money were not the problem, if you had all the money that you could possibly want, what would you do with it? And I think one of the problems with regard to thinking is that I get a lot of blank stares when I ask people, if you had $10 million in your account today, what would your life be about? And the problem that we have is that if you can't answer that question, then you're not as close to wealth as you would like to be. You need to be really convinced and sure and intentional and focused on why you want the money. And more than that, there has to be a game plan to transfer not only the money, because it's easy to transfer money, but transferring the wisdom and the skills and the knowledge and the understanding to our kids, to the next generation, so that they can use the money to create the good that they need to create.